Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders Midweek. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How are you, Dylan?
Nobody cares. They don't want to hear that again.
They don't care.
Well, I'm doing wonderful.
I don't care either.
See, I know.
Let's just skip that part.
Just fake BS.
What's going on?
Just digging through the new true crime news.
It's kind of a rainy day here in Western North Carolina, so it's a little drab. I just want to take a nap.
Drab is a great description of today.
I've got my coffee. I'm trying to be energetic, but it's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up.
That's right.
Everything sucks. People can get fucked. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's even the lyrics.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's the old Salty Water album, isn't
The hot dog flavored water album of Limp Bizkit.
it? Yeah.
All that like Y2K nostalgia is back. Our kids are digging it, right? So I've been seeing TikToks where kids are, and I say kids, I mean they're young people, you know, mostly teenagers making these videos, but talking about like Limp Bizkit and all of the terrible Y2K fashions that we wore back. And I remember the first time around, and I'll just say it, that was not a good look.
No, that was not a
That
good.
was a horrible time for fashion
It was not a good point in couture.
when we were in our early 20s.
No, and I think that needs to be left in the past.
I agree.
I don't think we need to be reminded of Jinko jeans or
Someone
any of
out
that.
there is like hissing at us, Dylan, because they love the frosty eyeshadows and the asymmetrical skirts, but that was not a good look.
And the silk shirts.
Silk shirts.
Yeah, the silk shirts, bro. We've talked about this before. The silk shirts the dudes wear.
I don't remember silk shirts
Well,
in the early
okay,
2000s.
the
I remember silk shirts in the early 90s.
how about like windsuits?
That's 90s. That's like early 90s. What are you talking? You don't even
God.
know what decade you're
I'm
in.
so old.
A windsuit. Yeah, maybe in like 1991.
Yeah, matching Nike windsuit, baby.
I don't know people wearing windsuits in like 2001.
Okay, so you're talking about early 2000s.
You're stupid.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about the early 2000s, Dylan.
Okay.
Not the fucking late 80s or early 90s. It's like you don't even know what decade you're in right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm still rocking my silk shirt. I don't give a damn.
Okay, that's and you're rocking those pit stains too,
That's not true.
where you sweat like a whore in church.
Okay, so here we are in the midweek, the middle of said week, almost to the weekend. So you're welcome very much. If you're hearing this right now, you've almost made it. And we have some pretty interesting true crime news stories coming at you right now.
I'm going to let you lead the show today, Dylan. So hit me with your best shot. What do you have for us this week?
Oh my God. Okay, this is a really sad story that seems like everyone's talking about. Authorities still hope to find missing Nevada teen Naomi Irion. I hope I'm saying her last name right. They hope to find her alive. Apparently, more than a week after the alleged abduction of Nevada teen Naomi Irion from a Walmart parking lot, authorities say they have yet to identify the man seen in surveillance footage moments before her disappearance. And if you haven't seen it, there is video of a man in a gray hoodie kind of loitering around the parking lot. So it turns out that Naomi's schedule was basically to come to the parking lot. She gets a shuttle to work. So she parks her car, catches a shuttle to work. And she's 18 years old. So she's, growing up, trying to be a grown-up and going to work. And she is seen on video being coaxed into a vehicle by this man in this gray hoodie.
When you say coaxed, like is she being forcefully like shoved into a vehicle?
Well, it is not. The description isn't like she's grabbed and flung into the vehicle, but it seems like she's being directed to get into the vehicle by this man.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's very scary, right? I mean, I was telling you about this story and you said that's just scary.
So basically, what you're saying is she is at a Walmart parking lot and gets into a vehicle with some unknown man in a gray hoodie, and she's not been seen since.
Correct.
So we don't know for sure if she knows this person.
No,
right?
they don't.
They don't
know. The suspect is said to have been driving like a 2020 model big pickup truck. So that's interesting. That's not a cheap pickup truck. And that's rather noticeable. So maybe that'll help give them a lead. So, yes, her routine involved catching a shuttle from the parking lot and riding it to her job site. In a surveillance video, she is coaxed into the passenger seat of her car by a 6-foot male suspect, who then appears to take off with her and her vehicle. Authorities said Irion's last known whereabouts were about 10 minutes away from the Walmart off State Route 427, where her phone signal went dark. Her car was located a few days after the alleged abduction, with evidence inside suggesting the incident was criminal and suspicious in nature, authorities say. And they're continuing to ping her phone in an attempt to track her location, and they have yet been unsuccessful. And they think the suspect may have been in a 2020 or newer Chevrolet 2500 High Country 4-door pickup, which is like a damn $70,000 or $80,000 truck. I don't know why that seems to stick out to me, but like I guess most criminals aren't going around in an $80,000 vehicle committing crimes.
Maybe they are.
But I guess if you're a monster, you might just have a good job, right?
Well, they do say psychopaths tend to be CEOs.
Well, there's that. So, yeah, that's very disturbing.
Okay, well, I guess I'm confused because they're saying he was in this vehicle, but they left in her car. So have they not been able to track his truck down or find this other vehicle that he was in?
No, I'm assuming that
he returned and took his truck away.
See, it just doesn't have that information here in this report.
Okay.
So that is a little confusing. I agree with that.
It is confusing. Well, for years on social media, specifically like Facebook, I'm not on there anymore. I haven't been on that app in quite some time, but there were all these incidences or stories that would circulate about mostly women at a local Walmart shopping or in the parking lot and encountering some strange individual or individuals who seemingly try to lure them in the car or are making them feel uncomfortable, like they're being followed, that type of thing. I mean, I know locally those stories have circulated, in our own neck of the woods. And I always kind of take those with a grain of salt because you're like, okay, is this someone just kind of trying to get attention or did this actually happen? Because it has, come out in some of these cases that this person perhaps made the story up just for attention or just, to try to disparage maybe a certain ethnic group or something.
Right. I know exact types of stories you're talking about, and typically they do tend to have this racial element. This Hispanic man followed me to the parking lot, or this black man. But some of those cases have been obviously proven to be true. You have this creepy guy who's kind of following you around the store and then kind of watches you check out.
Some of them are kind of hit or miss because, again, some of them maybe don't have a lot of truth to the story, but then others that are, there is some truth. And it's very frightening because even if you're a person who keeps your head on a swivel, and I would speculate that probably 95% of women out there, many of our listeners are those types that you're into true crime and you're very aware of your surroundings. These things happen and you do kind of go out with a sense about you of your surroundings, those observational skills, some perception. And when you see a person who's out of place or behaving strangely or, very suspiciously, you try to make sure you don't have contact with that person, get away from them. You want to get to a lighted area, whatever, have your cell phone on. But in some of these incidences, even if you are that person, it is just a matter of seconds that someone can snatch you, shove a gun in your face, throw you in the back of a van, a truck. I mean, it happens all the time. And it's frightening.
Well, yeah, you're just going about your daily business, your usual routine, and all of a sudden you find yourself in this vulnerable position where this person overpowers you, and it's easy to say, oh, I would do this or that in that situation, but you have no idea how you would react until it actually happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could be a person who's very aware, has that situational awareness, maybe even is armed with mace or a knife or even maybe a gun, a handgun shoved in your purse or something. But if you're someone who's just completely unaware, I mean, you can just be surprise attacked,
Yeah.
across the board. And it's just a very scary world we live in to think that you're simply running an errand, trying to get to work, and happen to encounter a person with ill intentions.
Well, if you go to get in your car and there's some panel van parked next to you with no windows in it, you know what I mean? And you're trying to get your keys out, you know, you might be carrying some stuff, fumbling around, and the door snatches open, and two or three guys, big guys, just grab. I mean, you know, what do you do in that situation? Most of us couldn't fight that off, men or women,
No.
because of the surprise and just the situation. See, what I do is I walk up and I look like, whoa, hey, there's a windowless, weird panel van. Could be a molester van. That's what I always think about. So I would already be weirded out. Okay? Would you?
Well, yeah. I'm not going to go park next to the van with no windows that has like free candy spray painted on the side.
No. Or if I leave and come back and now this van's in my spot, I might be just like, hold on a second. What's going on here? But I mean, you can't go around in some state of, you know, hyper awareness and live in fear. I don't think that's a good way to live either. So I don't know. You know, it's tricky. But it's very scary that someone could just be going on about their business 5 a.m. in a parking lot. She's done this a million times. It's just her morning routine. And then it seems that she has indeed been taken from that parking lot by force.
So Naomi has been missing for a week.
Yes.
And this has sort of become national news, right? I mean, a lot of news sources have started sharing the story, and there is like a manhunt underway. Is that what we know?
That is correct. A nationwide manhunt at this point for the person or persons involved in her disappearance. And I hope, you know, I hope there's a good resolution. You know, that's all I'll say. I hope she's somehow found alive and at least okay, you know, or, you know, brought back to where she can be okay.
Let's hope that she's found, that she's safe, and, you know, that her family gets her back.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
Gotta be a very tough situation to be in.
And in true Dylan fashion, I hope I didn't confuse anyone too much with that story. They probably already heard it from a much better source than I, but I thought this was just yet another person, yet another missing person, but I thought the circumstances were rather strange.
I guess you could possibly list this under good news. I think it's kind of cool to see how web sleuths and us armchair detectives can actually do some good in the world.
Oh.
So the suspected human remains of a 38-year-old Pennsylvania man has been found over this weekend, like this past weekend, by a team of volunteer cold case divers.
Wow.
Now, this man has been missing for nearly 2 decades. James Amabile vanished on December 4th, 2003. He was reported missing when he didn't show up to pick up his children from a babysitter. He had daughters. Didn't show up. His cell phone last pinged off a tower near a local police station, and the Ford Explorer he was believed to be driving was never found. It's taken nearly 20 years, and investigators were unable to solve his mysterious disappearance. On March 19th, local authorities responded to Darby Creek in Ridley Park, just southwest of Philadelphia, after reports that a missing vehicle had been found submerged in a body of water. Divers recovered a license plate along with some human remains. The license plate matched a missing person that was entered in December of 2003. A man's remains were reportedly found still strapped into the driver's seat.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yes. So the Ridley Township Police Department have not confirmed that it is Amabile's identity. They are waiting on an autopsy from the Delaware County Medical Examiner's Office. The cause of death, the cause and manner are still under review, according to officials. But police have credited Adventures with Purpose, which is a search and rescue cold case dive team, with finding this vehicle using some special sonar equipment, and they later tipped off authorities.
Yeah, I've seen some of these rigs. They kind of drag them along the edge of a boat or behind a boat, and it's very rather similar to ground penetrating radar, and it will give up signals of large blips on the floor that look unnatural, and then they'll kind of concentrate. That's where they actually try to get in and dive at, because it's typically in dangerous conditions, low visibility. But yes, that's very, very interesting that they just wouldn't let it go till they brought this man's remains home.
Amabile's relatives described him as a family man, very devoted to his 2 daughters. He worked the night shift at UPS in South Philly, and he had an implanted diabetic insulin pump that helped control his symptoms of diabetes. His brother has described the last 20 years as a purgatory, and this news is providing a sliver of closure for this family, because they have for 20 years just agonized over what happened to their loved one.
Wow.
What's really cool, Dylan, is Adventures with Purpose have solved 19 cold cases since 2019, and they have about 2 million subscribers on YouTube. They confirmed the discovery of Amabile's suspected remains over the weekend in one of their YouTube videos. It's just very cool that these folks get together. They saw, 19 cases, 19 cold cases. That's quite a few cold cases to solve in a matter of, 2 years, 3 years?
That's an incredible record. I mean, honestly.
I think it's awesome.
So, yeah, some of these groups, and they are far more dedicated than I am, but the energy and the time they put into, trying to break these cases down, get any sliver of new information or a new lead out of it, they do a really great job. And with some investigators may, view them as kind of meddling or, interfering at times in some of their cases. But, I mean, it's just you're accessing all this, some of the stuff these people do on these computers, like to figure this stuff out, just blows my mind.
And we learn from Scooby-Doo, meddling people typically solve the case, right?
They always figure it out.
Well, this team of cold case divers suspect that the victim may have suffered a diabetic episode at the time his vehicle plunged into Darby Creek. They traced his steps the morning he disappeared. So they retraced his footsteps from his house to the babysitter's house, ruling out bodies of water. They ruled out 2 or 3 more locations that crossed over waterways. They weren't deep enough, and it led them to search Stinger's waterfront, where they were able to discover this vehicle 24 feet deep underwater.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a pretty interesting story, and I'm just really glad that we do have these folks who generously volunteer their time, whether it's working with NamUs, the Doe Network, this dive team, Q, all of the searchers and folks who are generously devoting the time and attention to these cases. I think that's amazing.
Well, yeah, these are man hours or person hours, however you want to say it, and all this effort and time, resources put into this, and they're financing, that themselves. And I think it's amazing.
It's very cool.
Oh my God.
What else you got for us, Dylan?
Oh, this next one I have is very interesting. I will try to be direct and very detailed in my description of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's always a plus, right?
Thank you.
With some lethal injections harder to come by, some states are turning to a firing squad, bringing the firing squad back for their method of execution.
Right, and we discussed this Sunday on our Hall Rose episode.
We did briefly.
We briefly touched on this, so you may be aware because you listened to Mountain Murders. But go ahead, Dylan, let's discuss.
So, South Carolina's Republican governor signed a bill into law last week that sounds like it's from a different century. Death row inmates must choose whether to be executed by the electric chair or a firing squad if lethal injection drugs are unavailable. And you may be asking yourself, now why in the world would we not have the drugs to make the cocktail for the lethal injection? Well, it appears that Pfizer was one of the few holdouts, as far as pharmaceutical companies go, that would still didn't make you prove what you did with these components. Like, they didn't care, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Many other companies in other countries around the world have explicitly outlined that they do not want any components that they make for any drug components
for the cocktail,
the compounds
right,
to ever be used to kill someone. They claim, hey, we make drugs to save people's lives. as laughable as that is in some instances with big pharma. But they don't, they just they're against death penalties. We don't want you to use our product to put people to death, right? So Pfizer was the last remaining open market source of drugs used in executions. Pfizer makes its products to enhance and save the lives of the patients we serve, Pfizer said in a statement. Pfizer strongly objects to the use of its products as lethal injections for capital punishment. Can I point out the irony in that statement?
Feel free.
Right quick, without getting on a tangent. I mean, I think we all know that what Pfizer and the family, I forget their names, but the family that owns Pfizer, have done with the opioid crisis in America, pushing their drugs onto doctors, telling them it's very low risk of becoming addicted, and just ripping countless communities apart in this nation. And I think it's no different than if they were a drug cartel. Actually, I think they were more efficient than any drug cartel could ever be because they did it legally. They did it out in the open. And they pushed the Oxycontin, bud, right?
Absolutely.
And reap billions of dollars of profit from it. So now they're making a moral stand and not allowing these drug components to be used in execution. The company said it will begin restricting distribution of certain drugs that some states use in lethal injections. The newly restricted drugs are, and I'm going to save you listening to me butcher it is a bunch of stuff like potassium chloride, propofol, things of that nature. 7 different components. And for years, states have had difficulty obtaining these drugs to use in executions because, as I said, pharmaceutical companies don't want their names to be associated with killing people. So now here we are in South Carolina, and we find ourselves, hey, how do we put this person to death, right? So what they're doing is they're bringing out the oldies but goodies. They're bringing back the electric chairs. They're bringing back the gas chambers. They're bringing back the firing squads. And what do you think about that, Heather?
I guess I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I have mixed feelings about the death penalty in general.
I think your mixed feelings are if an innocent person gets caught up and put to death in the system, that's bad. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely concerned about falsely accused individuals receiving the death penalty. And then, some years later, whatever, you find forensic or DNA evidence, this person was completely innocent. So that part definitely leaves me with pause. And also, I guess I have a moral opposition to the death penalty because, it's not my place to decide who lives and who dies.
Yeah.
I mean,
get that.
ultimately, and I mean, we don't talk about it a whole lot on Mountain Murders. We don't get too personal with it. I'm not a hugely religious person by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not going to pretend like, I've got some sense of righteousness or something like that. But
you still have.
I guess I have these moral conflicts of like, well, who am I to judge? And yes, murder is terrible. I mean, we talk about these crimes all the time, and there has to be punishment suitable for the crimes. And there are some crimes that are so horrific, my immediate reaction is that person needs their fucking head chopped off, right?
Right.
Like, take them to the public square and let everyone stone them. They need to die a horrific death. But, again, I just have these moral conflicts of like, but who am I? And in the grand scheme of things, and if there is a higher power, then I'm not that person. I don't have a right to decide who lives and dies. I mean, there are other forms of punishment that we can dole out where we're not killing folks. I mean, but you get into this whole messy debate, and I don't know.
Well, it's certainly a big conversation that we're not going to resolve here in this episode.
No.
But, I do think when, one tricky part is what's the line? What is like, okay, they did this, they murdered someone, but where's the line? What turns it into this next level crime where they should certainly, in my opinion, be put to death? That's tricky. But I mean, some of these crimes are just so heinous against children, against the elderly, against women, whatever it may be. and I don't think that person should continue to live. But it's I certainly don't want an innocent person to be put to death, and then you find out they were innocent later somehow through DNA or whatever, and now they're dead, and you can't make them undead, right?
Well, this is how I'm lucky. I've never received jury duty, and I've never been tasked with making a decision like this. So I'm happy about that because I just don't know if I could be on a jury where I'm going to have to decide if someone lives or dies.
Well, I guess it would depend on what the case was, and if it's some horrible child killer or something like that, and it's there's great evidence that he really is the guy, the killer, I would enthusiastically vote for the death
like somebody
penalty.
like Sam Little's old ass.
Right.
Like, why are we like letting this sick fucker live and pay his medical bills, and he's sitting on death row or wherever, sitting in prison chilling
Buying him art supplies.
when he should be strung up in town square.
Yeah,
He should have his fucking head and dick chopped off.
this
because he's a
man
monster.
affected, maybe north of 100 families by
Ted
killing
Bundy,
someone.
John Wayne Gacy. All these horrific serial killers that we've discussed on Mountain Murders. There are plenty of them who are obviously guilty and they've confessed to their crime, and we know they did it, and they should not remain in jail for 30 or 40 years. It's like just teetering away. We should strap them to an electric chair, right? So again, I don't know. But, I guess we have to find smart solutions to our problems. If we can't get the drug cocktail, I guess we have to get creative. And if that means dipping back in our archaic methods of capital punishment, then I reckon that's what we got to do.
So, South Carolina has not put anyone to death in just over a decade, and the state's supply of lethal injection drugs have expired since during that time. So now here we are. They're wanting to bring back the firing squad, and Heather described it to me. It's set up much like the old system. Sounds like in this one they got you strapped to a chair. They have a target over your heart, the preferred spot for them to shoot. You have multiple shooters. I'm going to assume they're still doing the I don't know if I have a blank in my gun thing for the executioner. So I guess it gives them a little better feeling about having done this, because executing people's not easy. Some time ago we discussed the executioner, who in the medieval times would actually travel from town to town. He wasn't a popular guy. No one really liked to hang out with him. And they had to drink their sorrows away from having done this job of literally chopping people's heads off. So, there's all that. So what I do find interesting is there is only one state at the moment, and now I must say this report I'm citing is from 2021, so it may be a bit outdated. But New Hampshire is the only state that it would use hanging. Now, does that surprise you?
A little bit.
That it's not Texas or Florida or one of these known to execute states?
It does surprise me a little bit because I always think of New Hampshire as being a little bit more maybe like a liberal type, progressive type of state.
Right.
I don't know. I just think of New Hampshire, maybe it's me stereotyping, but maple syrup and like some Crunchy Grooves folks who wear Birkenstocks with wool socks in the winter. And,
and the possible states that may lean on the firing squad are South Carolina, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Utah, right? Which I think
now Utah does not surprise me because I think that's something they've been doing for a bit.
Utah has some old ways about them, that's for sure, and I think that's connected to the whole Mormon blah 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 thing. And not to discount Mormons, but I don't know exactly what the Mormon movement. 'Cause that's the reason Utah's there, right? They literally etched out that territory, built their own city.
Well, there were probably some other folks living there before. But
well, you know what I mean. I'm sure some people were displaced.
I'm sure.
And as far as the lethal gas, which I think the gas chamber is one of the scarier sounding forms of execution. What do you think? The old school where you're sitting there in this steel chair inside the chamber and they drop the pellet of whatever poisonous gas and it just starts
we've got a lot of
out.
ex-military folks who listen to the podcast, and if they've gone through boot camp, likely they have gone into a gas chamber situation, and I have to say that was horrible. I'm already claustrophobic, so having to wear any kind of OBA or canister, whatevs, to go into a situation's going to freak me out to begin with. But, they take you in, they line you up, probably 20, 30 people in there. You put your gas mask on, then they make you take it off. The room starts filling up, and then they slowly start like letting people out.
Right.
So if you're kind of on the back row, you're screwed because you're breathing that shit in, and it's horrible. So I can't imagine, you come out and you're snotty and people are puking and snotting everywhere, and it's just like bodily fluids you didn't even know you had coming out of places you didn't even know existed on your body. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, horrible mess. And I can't imagine, and it's like panic. You're just like, can't wait to get out of there.
Well,
so I can't imagine just that terror that you're feeling.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess if you really want to torture someone who's a killer, that would be a good way to do it, because that's a horrific feeling of that, and you can't breathe.
Well, say that's the thing with
it's almost like cruel and unusual punishment if you think about it.
Yeah, but my thing is, if they really are the killer, when people have these like, who am I to judge,
Right.
blah, 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 society should do this. They had none of that. None of that compassion for their victims.
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
And
totally.
I don't think they should get the mercy on the other side. But like I said, there's always that chance it could be an innocent person, blah, blah, blah. So obviously lethal injection is the primary. A good half of the states in America have no capital punishment. They use no method. And so for the other half, basically, that does, lethal injection is their primary method. So do expect, given the conditions that we're describing, we'll move on, but given the conditions that we're laid out here, for these different methods to come back. Some of these old methods, I would see hanging, firing squads, things of that kind of stuff. I would say things of that nature, as I always do. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I find it very interesting. I could talk about the electric chairs and all that all day, but we'll move on. So yeah, I find that very interesting.
Okay, here's another story, Dylan, that I want to share because I think it opens up an interesting discussion.
And Pfizer's a drug cartel, just to be clear, in my opinion.
Yeah, fuck Pfizer. Off with their heads. Now that's where we can bring in the guillotine or whatever.
What do you have for us?
Okay, so here's a story I think opens up a debate that we could get into for a couple of seconds. There was a woman, 38-year-old mother of three, named Kylene Waltman, that was walking in her neighborhood around 10:30 a.m. on Monday when she was attacked by three dogs. And she lives in, and I'm probably butchering this, so please correct me, Honiopath, South Carolina?
I think you're right.
Honiopath?
I think you're close.
So she's attacked by these three dogs. She was mauled so badly by these animals that she had to have her arms amputated.
Jesus, both her arms?
Yes. Her sister Sharon Green told WYFF News 4 that this was the most horrific thing she has ever seen. This man found her in a ditch where she's being attacked by these dogs. And this happened on Ball Road. I guess I should mention that. So he finds her in this ditch being attacked, and he had to go get a gun and shoot it in the air to get these dogs off this poor woman. And she had to be airlifted to the hospital. Her sister was like, she really didn't deserve this. She was a good person. She helped everybody. Immediately underwent surgeries at the hospital. She may require more.
Well, I mean, God.
Her sister's like, this has changed her whole demeanor. Like, everything about her has changed. She's not the same person she was.
Well, how could you be? That's just a horrible thing to happen to you. A life-changing event. You're being maimed, permanently maimed. Your life's going to change so much. Both your arms and hands gone. I mean, that's just, wow. I don't even know what to say. But, scary that, what were these dogs doing? Whose dog, were they strays?
Well, they are dogs that live in the area of Ball Road, and there is a Beware of Dogs sign on the owner's property.
And on the other side, it says they will bite you and rip your arms off.
Waltman,
what the fuck?
So she's had both arms amputated up to the shoulder, and now she may have to have her colon removed and potentially her esophagus.
Okay, well, I would, if I owned those dogs, I would be horrified, number one, and I would put all three of those dogs down Okay. They just, almost killed this human being. So I don't know. What do you do with that?
Well, the Abbeville County Sheriff's Office said animal control has taken possession of these dogs. The incident is being investigated by the Sheriff's Office and the county animal control. The owners should be held accountable for this attack, in my opinion. So that's why I thought this could open up a conversation about this, Dylan. What do you think? If you have dogs, is it your responsibility if they attack someone?
Well, you get a dog who has always been nice, because it's kind of like the, neighbor who, they interview the neighbor and they're like, I never thought he would do capable of something like this. So I guess a person could be surprised if a dog all of a sudden does bite and it doesn't have a history of antisocial behavior or any threatening people by trying to bite them. But I certainly think these dogs sound like they live together. They have a pack mentality.
Well, it seems, based on the information provided in the story, that the dogs were not chained up or locked up. So they were not in a kennel, and they were not on they didn't have any type of restraint.
And they are obviously not small dogs because of the horrible damage they did to this woman. So, I think that's irresponsible. I would not be comfortable leaving my animals out loose like that, right? If this had been a smaller child, I think most certainly they would likely be dead, right? But what's happened to this woman? My God.
I don't see information regarding the breed of the dogs. There is a photo, and I'm assuming it's an actual photo from the area, not a stock photo. Normally it will say like this is a stock photo or something if it is. But it looks like a single wide trailer, a little junky around it. Not to disparage trailers.
We got some junk in our yard.
Our yard's junky, but it looks a little junky, and there's a picture of a dog. Looks like it could potentially have some Rottweiler, but it's definitely like a mutt.
Okay.
But it looks like it could potentially have some Rottweiler.
It's a good sized dog.
It's a thick neck, muscly, kind of got that stout Rottweiler pit bull type of stature. You know what I'm talking about? The kind of large, but maybe I call them husky because they're not like tall dogs.
Right.
They're kind of short and stocky dogs.
So, and people always
looks like a little husky boy or something.
We grew up with the oh my God, the Rottweilers are going to kill you, or
the pit bulls.
Oh my God, the pit bulls are going to kill you. While we were growing up, all those stories, and I think it doesn't. I don't know. It's just it doesn't matter what the dog or who the dog is. Obviously, if it's big, that's different than a small dog, whatever. But you should have control of your animals. You know what I mean?
Well,
That's just the
leash
thing.
Laws for a reason. And these county ordinances that state, you can't let your pet, if you don't have a fence or whatever, you can't let your pets run wild out in the streets on your property, whatever. And we live out in the country to an extent, and I've lived in a very rural area where nobody had their dogs on a chain or a leash or in a kennel, and they just ran wild. And there were multiple dogs that would come into my yard and bark and growl, and I'd be thinking, you're on my fucking property. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's not okay.
But people have this mentality of like, well, I live out in the country. It doesn't matter. But your dog could still bite someone. So I think it's a matter of respect, and you should respect the animal. Because if your dog is just running around, it could get hit by a car. It could be attacked by another dog or another animal.
Someone could just shoot it for the hell of it.
Poison.
Yeah.
Some toxic substance at another person's. There's a lot of things that could happen. So if you cared about your dog, and you were a good pet owner, it seems to me you would not just let it run wild.
Well, and that's the number one thing. And do I think owners should be held responsible? Yeah. I don't know what that charge looks like. I don't know exactly what it would be. But if these dogs weren't allowed to run around, like this woman wouldn't have been attacked and her life forever changed. And there's no arguing against that. So, yeah, I think for the animal safety, for the public safety, and just from a nuisance element. If you have a dog, I don't have dogs. I shouldn't come outside my door and step in dog.
Well, we have Rufus.
No, but I'm saying if my neighbor has dogs and I don't, I shouldn't come outside and step in dog shit in front of right by my car.
Oh, you mean like those people that moved in next door? No, those
in
people
front of
are
my
really great.
house. So it's just it's a respect thing. You keep your stuff over there. I keep my stuff over here. And that's the way it works. That's how you make good neighbors.
Yeah, can we complain a little bit about our new neighbors?
Oh, my God.
So we have these folks who moved in to there's like 3 apartments next door to our house. And typically it's been a very quiet area. A lot of older folks live here. Not a lot of craziness. We have like one house on the block that's
We have the
dysfunctional household. But
Yep.
otherwise it's a very quiet, older, established neighborhood, which is a euphemism for, all the houses are like 100 years old. Anyway, some folks moved into this apartment, and, we normally wouldn't have a problem, whatever, but they are something else. They have trashed, like, junked the place up, and then they have, like, these 5 husky puppies
yeah.
that they're just letting muck out this tiny little spot that's just dirt.
That's on somebody else's property.
That's not even the property attached to the apartment building.
Right.
And they've got them, like, chained up. They don't all have houses. They're pitiful. They're literally like just living in their own piles of shit because these people are too lazy to clean up after their dogs.
Yeah, on a 3-foot chain, basically.
I feel so bad for these animals.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if that's what you got to do to have the animal there, then I don't think you need them. I mean,
The animals deserve better.
And I'm not
this.
saying I've never, had a dog on a long chain at a house, where they were sometimes put up on their chain so they couldn't get loose, or if I left, I want them to be extra secure when I left, and then turn them loose in the fence when I got home. But I've never just let a dog stand there on this short lead and just tied there day after day in the sun. And standing knee deep in their own shit.
I know.
You could at least take 10 minutes and clean up around the poor dog for the dog's
It's disheartening,
sake.
and I know a lot of folks be like, "Oh, you should call animal control," but let's be honest. I mean, we know our local animal control, and they typically are like, it has to be seriously severe, situation to remove an animal.
Yeah, for what they say is the bare minimum to have a dog in this kind of condition. I told Heather just the other day, it's sad what they consider okay for an animal. Because, I mean, I don't know. I just wouldn't do anybody like that. They wouldn't want to be chained to a damn tree and shedding and standing in their own. I mean, nobody does. And then you take a dog's nose is, 50,000 times stronger than ours or whatever. And the poor thing's just chained right there in its own waist.
Well, every time I walk down the driveway to the mailbox, I catch a whiff.
I told you.
And it's funky.
I said, you wait for summer. That spot right there is going to be.
It's going to be bad.
And the first 3 warm days we had in a row, Heather was like, oh my God. And I'm just like, yeah. So that's how that's going to work.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you move, most people usually downsize and clear out the unnecessary junk that they've been accumulating. And we certainly accumulated around our house and in the yard and have to clear it out from time to time. But these people actually moved with junk. Like as soon as they moved here, they had like useless junk piled up behind the place. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah, I feel like we don't really have junk piles though.
No.
I mean, we just have, like typical things you might see around a house, like a trash can and maybe a couple tools, a rake or something.
Well, and I throw my cigarette butts down, then I have to pick those up.
Yeah, that pisses me off.
I'll pick them up.
It makes me angry when you do that.
It still looks trashy though, and I like it.
Well, you know what? We live in an old house. It's not like it's nice, so.
I was like,
it's we could have it. It could be when we've like landscaped and we've tried to make it look nice. It still looks trashy because it's just an old ass house.
It's true.
Need some new siding. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
I tell Heather we're safe here because no one would ever assume there's anything of value inside this house.
Yeah, that's the key right there. Is don't let people think you have nice stuff. Right. Just let the outside of your place look like a junkyard, like a shit pile, and then no one will break in your house.
It's true.
Because they're thinking, what am I going to get? Like a couple of nickels?
Yeah.
I mean, but to be honest, that's probably all you'll get from me.
Well, they got a blood-stained mattress in there.
Because I don't have any cash on me, but...
Nope, but if you take me to ATM, I can probably get you $20 out if I move some money around.
I have a coloring book sitting here that's like Make America Meow Again.
Yes.
Cats and presidential settings. They could steal that. That's valuable, right?
It's probably a collector's item.
It was a gift. It was a gift, Todd. I have one more story for us to end the show, Dylan, and this is not a true crime story, though it should be, because we all know that I think snakes are criminal. I don't like them, but I have a snake story.
Are you even going to be able to read about snakes?
I can read this one because it's kind of funny and it delights my inner 12-year-old. It's making me giggle.
All right.
The western hook-nosed snake, a snake endemic to the deserts of the United States and Mexico, is famous for the shape of its snout, and it has a very unique defense mechanism, Dylan. It farts to confuse its enemies.
I didn't know snakes could fart.
That's why I'm like, I had to share the story, right?
Is this
like
the
I
magic?
said, my inner 12-year-old is just like, Cobras and rattlesnakes have their deadly venom. Constrictors like pythons and boa have their strong musculature. But the western hook-nosed snake doesn't have either, so it relies on a more unusual defense mechanism of farting. When threatened, it emits rumbling air bubbles from the cloaca, the common opening for excretion at a snake's rear end.
So they got a cloaca just like a chicken.
So this is known as cloacal popping or defensive flatulence. God,
I believe
it's a
I
very
have this.
strange means of defense, but it is designed to confuse predators long enough for the snake to escape. So now, not only do I have a fear of snakes, but I have a fear I'm going to be farted on by a snake. A snake is going to fucking crop dust me. I just know it.
So it turns out I have the same defensive capabilities, and you scared me in the bed last night.
You scared me in the bed last night.
And I pootied.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I pooted by accident.
I thought you were just gross.
No, it was.
Romance is dead, y'all. I'm just going to say. When you get married or you have a long-term relationship with someone, they just start farting on you. That's when you know, like, romance is just dead.
Since we're on the subject, I must say, when you poot and you got 3 or 4 layers of covers over you, it's quite different than if you have an open air poot. Would you agree?
Like when you're Dutch ovening yourself?
Yeah, that's the one that lingers, cranberry style.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so there's a farty snake out there.
A farty snake.
The hook nose.
A farty snack.
Oh my gosh. And I'm going to say my resources today, because I did not write any of that, was NPR and people.com.
Okay, I got my stories from Oxygen News.
Oh, wow.
And the diver story, it was a great.
No, Oxygen
story.
News is great, bro. I'm not,
Make fun.
I'm not making fun.
And then, of course, WYFF News 4, which is a station out of South Carolina, reporting on this dog attack, which is very frightening.
No, it is. I mean, come on, people. I think most people out there are sensible, and they keep their furried, 4-legged, I was going to say lovers. I meant friends.
Okay. Lovers and friends.
And
have you been listening to Usher?
Keep them safe and keep other people safe. So, I mean, do right by your little friends. If you can't deal with them, find somebody that can take care of them. And I'm speaking for our neighbors, where they got the dogs chained up and shit. Okay, so that is today's episode.
And we will be back this weekend with a brand new true crime story for you. I've dug up another Carolina tale.
Oh my gosh, he is deep in
keeping it in the North Cackalack this coming weekend.
She has been rustling around deep in the archives and just really bringing out some really great, interesting stories I've never heard. So keep up the hard work, Heather. And we hope everyone enjoys their midweek. And we cannot wait to see you in the weekend.
We hope that you will download our second podcast, Batshit Crazy. You can find it on all platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Deezer, Castbox, YouTube, wherever you look for podcasts. Find Batshit Crazy. We discuss an assortment of topics, everything from UFOs to secret societies, cryptids. We have a lot of fun. It kind of gives us a chance to cut loose and get a little silly sometimes. So you definitely want to check that out. And if you want to do more to help mountain murderers and you're like, I wish I could support your podcast, here are 2 very simple things you can do. 1, if you have a YouTube account, give us a follow. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Even if you're not listening to Mountain Murders on YouTube, just subscribe. It helps us. We're trying to get to enough subscribers that we can maybe monetize, some of our work. So that would be helpful to us. And also, we would love for you to follow us on TikTok. We have been making some silly TikTok videos, maybe a few that are a little controversial, but giving folks a little dose of comedy, some true crime, and just some unusual Appalachian facts or information.
Yes, do all that
Mountain
stuff.
Murders Podcast.
Yes, and you can also hit subscribe no matter where you listen to Mountain Murders. That always helps. And if you're feeling froggy and have a few minutes, stop and leave us a 5-star review. That always helps keep us in the charts and keep us moving forward. And we thank you.
Okay, you guys have a great week.